Hello, my name is Rory. I'm a member of the customer team at Functionally, and in this demo, we're going to run through some of the features that you'll need to help build your workforce's future. Now, we've all been through a scenario before where we may have had misalignment within our organization, and nobody wants to have to go through a restructure. But if you are going to go through that, then you want a really clear picture of your organization, and not just the structure. You also want to be able to understand what's the data behind your organization as well. Um, so what we have here is one of my fictional companies. It's kind of based on some of the stories I've heard over the past few years with Functionally from customers. Um, so what we can see here are some tiles. These are different scenarios for our fictional company, Brixel. Now they're a 500-person SaaS startup that's growing fast, but they have a little bit of a bottleneck in some of their decision making. So whilst they're growing and they're hiring for vacancies, they also need to do a little bit of a restructure of their leadership team. So we can see each of these here is a different scenario. We can see that there is Brixel's current state scenario as they are exactly today. We can see that they've been working on a future version of their organization, and then this is where they imported. Now that when they went through the import process, they used a CSV. They used our CSV import engine with some of their own custom data added in as well. And it was very easy for them to get started. They aligned their different fields to what we have within our database, and as I said, mapped some of their custom data, and then they were getting going within 5 minutes. We can see it's being built in the background. Now, at the moment, it's showing a lot of the org chart because it's a fairly big org chart, but what we're going to do is make it a bit narrower. And then we'll just zoom in on it. And that's the top few layers. Now, when we have a look at their current state in the next little bit, we'll see how large the org chart is. But that's how easy it was for them to get going. Now, back on our homepage, we want to have a look at Brixel's current state scenario as they are today. And when we open this now, we can see that we have a few more pieces of information that they've added in the meantime. So we can see these little groups here. They've added in some business units and divisions, and then they've also got some regions added in as well. If we zoom in on the sales team, so we can see that they've got different regions for their sales teams. Now, Brixel, the reason that they wanted to use Functionally was because we can model different types of data for them, and we can model different relationships, and also we can model more kind of future-focused organizations. If we zoom in on their CEO here, what they found was that by looking at the reporting structure beneath their CEO, that some of the bottleneck was that her span of control was too great. She had too many direct reports, which was slowing down decision making. Now, we're looking at Brixel's current state scenario here, and Brixel are sharing this within their organization as well, because they want their entire organization to be able to see the working relationships. So they have a free share link that they embed in their intranet service, and they're able to share that across the organization. So they don't want to be going through a restructure in this data here. Now, don't worry, nobody within their organization can see any of this compensation information because there are different access levels and different sharing levels. Now, this particular scenario, their current state scenario, also has a few more people that are added to it, but we don't want all of those people to be able to see the restructure being modeled. So we're going to actually make a copy of it, and we're going to call it future. And we're just going to share it with me at this stage because we want to test some ideas out first before we start sharing it more broadly within the company. And we'll select to include compensation as well, and we're going to go ahead and make a copy of it. So what we have here is a sandbox version of the current state scenario. So it's our future scenario. And we can feel safe in here to propose any changes, to move things around, to test ideas out if we want, because there's nobody else in the scenario at this stage. It's just us. Now we can see that we've got the whole organization, but we don't really need to be looking at the entire org chart at this stage. We just want to look maybe one layer below is fine for now. And we know that our CEO is overworked, and what has been identified is that there's that slowing decision making down. and we want her to focus on product and engineering because she's a product engineering and design rather, because she's a subject matter expert for our product. So we want to take some of the load off her plate from activities like sales and marketing, finance. Um, and so the way we're going to do that is that some of that is going to be taken up by our COO. So the COO is going to be involved more in the sales and marketing decision making and finance decision making. So how are we going to make that relationship clear where we have these people are still going to report to Georgianne, so our Chief Revenue Officer, Rosalie Galagos, and Britta Libet, our CFO, are both going to continue to report to Georgianne, but in a cross-functional way, like in a dotted line way. We want them reporting to Cly, who's our COO. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our roles option. So roles in functionally are like hats. People have they can have positions and they can have roles. And a role are like the different hats that people wear within an organization, whereas the position, which is what we see here, is their official position. So it's each person occupies probably only one position because they're not going to have multiple contracts with the company. When you look at LinkedIn, it's just one thing that's said for them in there. But they might have multiple different roles. Now, these are the roles here that are within the position. So we want to create a dotted line between Cly and these two particular roles, so our CRO and our CFO. So we can see that we've now got that dotted line relationship between them. But we also want to move our finance team to be within the operations team so that it's one team in total. So we're going to go ahead. Now Britta will still continue to report up to Georgianne, but we're just going to move her branch in next to Cly. And then we're going to go ahead and remove this. So now what we have is our finance and operations group. And we can see that there's some red numbers up here, and those are just our operating targets for what was the operations team, but we want to change it to be more reminiscent of the finance and operations team now. So we're going to change these, and we're going to set it to be at most, we'll say 80. So that's our headcount, that's the number of people in there. This is our full-time equivalent. So each full-time person counts as one. So there must be people in there who are only fractional in terms of their time. And then we'll set this to, let's say, 13 million. So now we can see we're operating within range. Now we've made those changes, so we've got our dotted line reporting, and we can see that we've got our finance and operations team. Those are kind of some small structural changes. But we also then want to have this reflected below the surface to show where that work is being done. And in functionally, we have what we refer to as a functional chart. So it's where the accountabilities of the organization live. Now you can use our libraries. We have our own inbuilt libraries that you can import from, or you can use our AI function to suggest functions and accountabilities that might be the kind of thing you would use for a company of your size. Now we're not going to accept these. And then you can also import. So you can import from a CSV as well. So we can see that we've got all of our accountabilities. These are our accountabilities here, like board governance, corporate ethics, that fit underneath certain functions. So they're categorized by functions. But what we want to do is take some of the accountabilities that are assigned to Georgianne, and we want to actually assign them to Cly. So we can see that we've got within the function of strategy and planning, we've got funding, sourcing and management, strategic opportunity identification, and market and competitive intelligence. And then we've got some governance ones as well. So we've got investor relations. So we want investor relations as an accountability to sit with Cly. So we're just going to move that across, and now Cly is accountable for investor relations because he's working more closely with our CFO, and that's It's our CFO who's going to be performing that. And then we are also going to move market and competitive intelligence to CLI as well. So that if anybody looks at the organization, they can see who's accountable for those different things. So the person who's accountable is not the person who's necessarily going to be performing the tasks, but they are a key decision maker or the key decision maker in the business. You might want to have only one, or usually you would only want to have one person accountable so that you don't get confusion where there are overlaps. So once we've made those changes, quite often what will happen is org designers will they will have multiple different proposed scenarios, and then they'll do a comparison. So they might use the change plan to run a comparison against the original scenario. So we'll say that our Brixel current state, and this is just going to take a second to compare. So what it's done is compared our future state to see what changes have happened from our current state. So we can see here that these are all the changes. So we can see a change in headcount in different branches, and we can see changes in reporting lines. So we can see that our chief financial officer now has a dotted line, excuse me, reporting up to our COO. If there was any change in compensation, we'd also see that as well. And then this can be exported to CSV to be shared externally. Some of the other views that we have then, I mentioned at the beginning of the demo that they're a fast growing company, so they have lots and lots of vacant positions within their organization. So we can quickly see where those vacant positions sit on the position view here. So the position view starts off as a non-ordered view, it's non-hierarchical, but it allows you to filter and group by certain things, and we can see different pieces of data. So we can see the accountabilities we were looking at as an example. We're just going to switch most of it off so that we can only see a few pieces. And then we can see a custom property here. This business unit is a custom property. But what we want to be looking at is total compensation and start dates for our different vacancies. We're going to group by different managers within the organization, or we could group by color to see their functional areas. I've used color to show the different functional areas within the organization, but I want to look at manager. And then we're just going to filter to look at vacancies. So these are all of the vacancies within the organization, and we can see whose manager they are. And then we can also sort by start date. So if there's a team that has more than one, then we can see them all sorted by start date. So the position view just allows you to view data the way that you want to view it. So that view your org chart and its underlying data in different ways. Now, if Brixel was planning for a future state with their hiring plan, then they would come into the forecast sheet. And the forecast sheet is where you can use those start dates that we've applied for different vacancies. And we can look at the change in compensation. Again, let's maybe look by color. And then we can see how compensation is changing over time, how it's growing as our new vacancies are kind of simulated as being hired for in the future. And then we can see the different functional areas within the organization and how that compensation is going to change over time. So we can see, perhaps I would imagine our engineering team probably is changing. Yeah, we can see our engineering team is hiring quite a lot more over time. And this could also be exported to CSV as well. So those are the main features for going through change. There are a wealth of other data or other features that we have. We're always keen to hear what customers are asking for. So if you are interested in learning more, if you have questions about any of this, please feel free to reach out to us on support@functionally.com. That's support@functionally.com. Thank you. Bye-bye.